Everyone to Bridges Life presents There's a Better Way with Maria Fiorentino. I have not spoken with Maria for, it's been over a year since COVID, it seems like, hasn't it, Maria?
Yeah, I think it has been, yes.
And shame on us. But I know life gets in the way and we try to tackle all the things we possibly tackle, but we are doing this show today because I believe in my heart of hearts there's a better way. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Maria, first tell people about yourself if they don't know, if they can, and all that stuff, and then we'll get into what we want to talk about in the show.
Sure. I'm an attorney. I'm retired. I retired at the end of 2020. I pretty much concentrated my solo practice in post-conviction cases. And those are cases that are instituted by inmates saying that there was ineffective assistance of counsel at the trial level, at the appellate level. There was also prosecutorial misconduct, and I handled those types of cases. I also did appeals from those cases also. And then I finally retired. But in my experiences as a criminal attorney, I saw how the criminal justice system, just how it fails to work and how it fails to help the people who are in it.
You know, I have to keep reminding myself every time I do anything of a show, conversation with someone, I have to realize that everyone may not know how the system is. So can you describe what the system is? So you get arrested, you get charged, and go from there. Because you think people watch law shows or criminal shows, or they've had someone go to court, and they think they know, but there could be some pieces missing. Because we
Yeah,
must talk about the system before we talk about the system. So
that's
let's.
right.
So go ahead. So help
Let
people
me,
out.
I can make it really simple.
Good.
I recently had my book published, and what I did with my book is I divided the system into its various parts.
Okay.
The first part is the police, second part is the bail, third part is the courts or the sentencing, however you want to term it. The fourth part is the prison, and the fifth part is parole and probation. So that's, and then, well, if I can describe the criminal justice system in those five parts, that makes it really simple. Just
Okay.
like you, person gets arrested, then he goes to his bail hearing. The bail hearing is, hey, is he going to be able to return to court for his preliminary hearing, his trial, that kind of thing. And they set up a bail amount, an amount of money, depending on the crime that they commit, whether misdemeanor or a felony. And the problem there is most people can't afford the bail.
That
So
I was just
they,
gonna mention that. I just know more black people are probably sit in jail because they
that
can't afford the bail. And I
they
did
can't,
not mean to rhyme that.
that's right. They can't afford the bail. And what I found is that the bail system works against the poor and the Black population.
Right.
So you have the bail. And so the person just languishes in jail until he's ready to go to trial. The trial happens. He's either, found guilty or not guilty, or the case is dismissed, whatever. If he's found guilty, yes.
Question. So when we put things on a trial docket, right? It's how does, and maybe you know this, but how does a judge get picked for a particular crime? Can a judge say, I want that case? Or does it just go like in a lottery?
I think it goes whatever judge is available at the time. That, there's only so many judges, but you also have judges that are retired judges, but they're still sitting on the bench. So
Okay.
in other words, they only sit on the bench like maybe one day a month, so they get some cases. Some of them, matter of fact, I was in one of my post-conviction cases, I was before a retired judge. And it just so happens he was sitting on the bench that day and he had got my case.
Okay.
If you're a really good, attorney that has a lot of experience and all the judges, you don't get to pick your judge.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you don't get to pick. That's the thing. You don't get to pick them. And then after the trial, then they have their sentencing hearing,
Right.
and the judge will decide what their sentence. And then they're whisked off to prison, and then the bad stuff continues to happen.
Right.
And then after prison, then after the number of years, or when they're eligible for parole, they go before the parole commission to see if they'll get parole. Now, if they have a life sentence, they have to serve so many years. Usually it's at least 20, 25 years before you get eligible for parole. So that's how that works. And then if you get paroled, lucky you get paroled. But then there's still bad things that happen after that. So everything needs to be reformed from beginning to end.
But when we talk about it, and I think that's what scares people, because when a lot of the stuff in the newspaper was defund the police, that was it was getting dragged out. We're like, no, we're not trying to take police off the streets. No, we're not trying. We're trying. So that we were talking about reforming the police, not telling them they can't be police officers or not do their due job or anything. We were just it has to be different of how they do it.
That's right. Like in my chapter on police reform, the first thing that we heard when George Floyd was killed, right, was defund the police.
Right.
Well, I was thinking, how can you're taking money away from the police? How are you going to reform the police if you take money away from them? You need to put money there, because in order to reform, you've got to
teach and train.
You got to reinvent, restructure, and redefine the police's purpose.
Right.
Because when I look back 50, 60 years ago, the police would have their beat. Remember their beat?
I remember. I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah, and we would know the police. My father had his shoemaking shop on MacArthur Boulevard in Washington, D.C., and we had a number of police, and I would know them. So did my father. And they were there to help, to aid people. Right. But today, it's not. They don't look at it that way. But we got to get back to that. We got to get back to finding a new purpose for the police, which is aiding the communities that need the help. And that has to do with how the police interact with the community. So there has to be improvements on hiring, how they hire the police, how they train them.
Right.
The biggest thing about training is de-escalation. The police can go in there and they make matters worse. And it shouldn't be that. They should be trained to de-escalate a very high risk situation. And then I also talked in my book about creating new units within the police department, new units where you're getting social workers involved, you're getting mental health people, psychologists, psychiatrists involved in special units. And I can't remember I don't know if it was in Illinois or Ohio, somewhere, they had a new unit that ran around in this van, and it was marked, and I can't remember what it was marked, but it wasn't police officers, but it was part of the police department.
Right.
And they came and they would assist and would come to high tense situations where there was a drug addict and he was, going crazy, that kind of thing. So you get the mental health people involved. So the police really need to be trained on new ways of doing.
I don't know. I'm in economics. I don't see anything wrong with per shift, per police department, that van. The van has a cop, a police officer, I apologize, a police officer, a mental health and substance abuse riding around in that vehicle. Now, of course, you still have your other police officers in there patrolling, but this one doesn't get, it's not like you're going to get separated. I mean, it's not that, but
No,
they can arrive with the car and the van.
that's right. They get involved. They don't get involved in, let's say someone goes in and does armed robbery in a grocery
Right.
store. Get involved with that.
Right.
Get involved more with, let's say, domestic violence. They get involved with, let's say, a drug addict is ODing, or he's causing a lot of commotion, or a drunk.
And we know that the police have to be there to clear the scene, so to speak, to make sure it's a safe scene. And that's probably where a lot of escalation comes up, creating the scene safe.
That's right. So, they're getting other professions involved that can handle the situation better because they're educated for that. Like a mental health, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a social worker. Like they even help in this one town, they even help the homeless find shelter. And that's what the whole thing is about, reforming the police. And the purpose is to help the communities where they need the help. And the big thing today, and now because of that I can't remember the name of that young guy that was shot, was the no-knock warrants.
Oh yeah.
The no-knock warrants. Here Maryland has instituted a lot of laws, and one of it is they can only do no-knock warrants between the hours of 8 and 7 during the day, with the approval of the Office of the State's Attorney. So that puts some restriction on that, and then there's
Maria, I got a question. And we, on our show last night, You Be the Judge, we have one of my co-hosts is Marilyn Pierre. She's running for circuit court judge in Montgomery County, and then Judge Claudia Barbara. And then our guest was a Dave Grogan running for sheriff in Prince George's County. My question that comes up is this, and this, I don't want to take this away from the show. If a person comes in, when they come into, like, I'm going to use my house for a no-knock warrant, but they're looking for my cousin like they were in Minneapolis, right? They say, hey, he stays over there at that house. So the no-knock warrant is for my house. They come in, and the way they come in and the way that I'm trained, those 6 officers, they're not going to make it. Is there a charge that you think that I would get? I'm curious about that. I know I'm not going to be a very happy camper with the police department because I just killed 6 of their friends and colleagues. But is that a charge on me? I mean, I know it's a guess, and I don't want to, but because it is depends on this, depends on that. But
it depends on how the police, if you feared for your life.
Well, they just came in. They didn't say if they, and this is where Dave Grogan, because he worked with the marshal's office on the federal level, and they come in. These are the marshals, and they knock, and they tell they're screaming out, marshals, right? The no-knock warrant, they're not letting people know who they are coming in. So
they just come in.
So you come into my house that way, you're not going to make it out.
It's scary because you don't know who's coming in your home.
Right. So they don't make it out. I do my due diligence, and they don't make it out. My question is, what is there a possibility? Can you see a charge? Oh, you froze.
I don't know about that. That's really, that's really sticky. There's, you are protecting your home. You have a right to protect your home and protect your life.
Right.
But then there comes the issue of excessive force. Are they coming in holding their guns and guns blaring, or they just walking in and you see the uniform? So there's that aspect. So there's a lot of facts that have to be taken into consideration if there is a charge against you. So did you use excessive force against them? Did they just walk in and say, hello, we're looking for so-and-so, or
Well,
are they holding their guns?
We'll use Minnesota, the way they busted through that door. If that was my door, those first 3 officers would have been down.
Yeah, I think most people would probably do the same thing. I know my husband would probably do something too, because you don't know here you're sitting there watching TV,
right?
And a bunch of people busting. You think the worst. Oh my God, these are people in here to kill me.
Right.
Thinking about law enforcement or a no knock warrant or anything like that. You're just thinking that someone's coming in here to rob you.
Right.
And so there is, you got to look at the crime, what they charge you with. And then me being an attorney, I look at all the elements. Are all the elements of the crime, can they prove that?
Well, it's not a problem. The question I have is, if it would be a charge, what would be the possible charge?
What would be the problem? I don't know, because you have a good defense, self-defense. Charge would be, murder, but
it wouldn't be murder.
It would be murder. It is, as long as they die.
Oh, they're going to die. They would die.
They're dead. Well, then it would be murder. But then you have the defense of self-defense. There's that, so could there be a charge? I don't know.
I don't want to go into speculations and what is and what is, because so with that, there's prison now.
Yes. And then
we're at the prison. People are we're not going to get into why people are wrongly convicted. That's a whole other show. But and then there's probation. Where does your book talk about the reform? Where's the book? You have the book next to you. I hope you have that book right next. Let me see that beautiful book. There it is.
Now, here you begin to wonder, what is this?
It's the wheels. It's the cog.
It's their gears.
Yeah.
Their gears of watch. My son did this for me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, my son, he's a industrial designer, but he did this for me because I told him what I wanted. And the title of the book is Interdependency: How to Reform the Criminal Justice System, a View from a Criminal Defense Attorney.
There it is.
And this cover will tell you what my book is all about and what I'm advocating. The gears all work together to make the watch tell time. Well, all the parts of the criminal justice system that I mentioned, the police, the bail, the courts or sentencing, however you want to label that, the prisons, parole, and probation, they're all parts, 5 parts of the criminal justice system. They have to be gears all working together, because the whole purpose of the criminal justice system, I feel, should be to make the offender a better person when he gets out. Not the same or worse.
Okay.
But
now the pushback is, I know what you would like the prison system to be, but what is you got into being a defense attorney for many reasons. So what is the prison system developed for? Not what they use it for, because we know they use it for labor. We know they use it for a lot of things. But what was it built for?
Well, the prison was built for punishment.
Period.
The whole idea. Now, the punishment was to take the person and punish them, take them away from their family, their friends, their neighborhood, their home. And that was their punishment. But they continued the punishment once they're in there. The punishment continued. Failing to give medical aid when they needed medical help. And physically abusing the inmates. I mean, I'm really big on that. So the prison systems did not, it was like a dungeon. They're bad people and they have to be in there and they're never going to get out.
But then they also use the prison system for mental health for a period of time.
Definitely mental health, and it shouldn't be used for that. And they did, like, they would convict a person who had mental health problems, and they would just throw them in prison, and they would think, oh, well, they're in there and they'll get mental health
treatment,
help,
right.
but don't. And either they feel that they can never be rehabilitated.
So now when I talk to a person, a prison lieutenant or warden, and I have their biggest, it's not a complaint. One of the biggest issues that the very few people for many prisoners. So for social worker, for mental health worker, for priest, teacher, all of it, they just don't have enough people in the prison to do what they believe they think they could do. Now, I find that so difficult. And the reason why is because when you build a prison, you know how many guards you would like to have, because you know how many prisoners you're going to have. You know how many beds you're going to have. You know how many pots and pans you probably need to have to cook for these many people.
Yeah.
What is the problem of hiring the other doctor, mental, for the people? How come that gets missed?
Well, this is, if you go back to my book and go back to, let's say, the sentencing portion.
Got you right here. Yeah.
I am advocating that all drug crimes need to be eliminated because they're not crimes. Drug addiction is an illness.
That's
it's
right.
Not a crime.
Right.
I don't know why they're making it a crime. And the same with the people who deal with the drugs. Most of the people deal with it, they're taking the drugs themselves and they sell to support their habit.
When did drugs become a crime? Was it always a crime, or was it, we knew it was illegal, like alcohol?
Yeah.
But when was it became a crime?
I don't, tell you the truth, I really don't know, but I think they really started this back in maybe the 70s and 80s when they said, oh, well, we got to do mass incarceration.
Right.
We got to, and that's when drugs just get, because the drugs cause crime.
Right.
But, the drug addict has a disease, has an illness. Okay. Why? And if, can you imagine if they get rid of all of that, all those people in prison, they're out. Look how much money we save.
Yeah.
So, like, taking that large group of people out of prison, also not only getting rid of drug crimes, but also getting rid of life sentences, long-term sentences like 50 years.
These draconian terms, these long terms are just ridiculous. I heard of a judge sentencing a person to 10 years in jail for $46.
Oh my God. See, that's ridiculous. No, that doesn't make sense to me. We got to get rid of those long sentences. Now, the judges also have to decide when they do the sentencing. There has to be risk assessment, psychological evaluation, everything has to be done on the defendant. So they know what program they're going to put them in prison. And what happens is the long sentences, they're indeterminate sentences.
Right.
So that it depends on what program the person is going into. And these programs in prison are intensive programs where the prisoner is working all day, whether they have to go to either they have an alcoholic, they're alcoholics or drug addicts, so they go rehab, they get their high school diploma. If they don't have it, they want to take some college courses, preliminary college courses, that's available. They're on work detail, they're in classes, whether they want to, if they don't want to do college, they want to, let's say they want to become an electrician, they have those courses there, and they are constantly in school. It's almost like being in some kind of reform academy of sorts.
I agree.
where they are constantly working, studying, going to class. They don't have time to screw around.
So here's the question, and being what I do and who I am, historically, Black America have believed, with some statistics, that this just was a way to institute a different plantation of slavery, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rhetoric and some science behind it, with some system, and all of it can be, a lot of it interwoven with, some people, just bad people, need to go to jail. I mean, that's just what it is. And then right. So, and then you weave in some systematic issues with our instituted racism, right? There's a lot of stuff in that stew pot.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about reform, it's almost like people are afraid to change something because of what they're afraid of is their own racism, and their own system may break down, that keeps them somehow in favor in a society.
That's right.
How are you? You're talking against the machine right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, I can't go into every aspect of my book because it's a lot. But even though it's a small book, it's just my thoughts. And I really feel that it's how you reform the person. And because the person comes in and he's in a bad state. He doesn't know. I look at how I was raised. I was raised in a roughly middle class white neighborhood, and my parents were immigrants from Italy. I was first generation, and I went to Catholic schools all my life, and college, and then law school. But my father and my mother, they worked hard to give me my education, but back then it didn't cost that much. I mean, I'm still paying for my son's college education, you know, and he's been out for years. So, you know, I had the opportunity.
Right.
And I was surrounded, I wasn't surrounded, like, you look at these people that commit crimes. In their neighborhood, on one corner, there's prostitution.
Yeah.
On another corner, there's drug deals.
Yeah.
Their father is in prison. Their brother was killed in a bad drug deal. And their sister is a prostitute. And the mother's trying to hold everything together. Good luck.
Good luck with
that they are going to make it out of there and make something out of themselves. But the thing is, these people are not stupid.
Right.
They're smart.
Right.
And we're wasting these intelligent people. We need, and that's where the police comes in, getting into the neighborhoods, how they interact and assist the neighborhoods. I remember I used to go up to New Jersey for the summer, and up in that little town that I was in, they used to have a youth center. And I don't know, this was back in the, I'm thinking 60s and 70s, maybe the 60s. It was youth center. The police were involved in that. The teachers were involved. Parents were involved. Community leaders were involved. And it was for the use of that neighborhood.
Yeah, they took that out. They took those out.
And that's sad. That's how the police should get involved. They should get involved with business, the businesses that are there, the merchants, and help them, and have community meetings every month to find out what's going on, and have all the different departments of the police there, social workers, psychologists, you know, to work with the community to uplift these communities.
So, Maria, we beg the question, we ask, how come the system does not want to change.
That, you know what, this is what, when I start talking about getting rid of drug crimes, people be like, what? You want to do what? And you want to get rid of life sentences?
So who's talking? Who said, like, you don't have to say the person, but I
general people that are not in the criminal justice field, okay? Neighbors, friends, you know.
I know I talk to a lot of Black people, and they're okay with getting rid of drug crimes.
Yeah, well, see, the people that I'm involved with, they don't do drugs. That's the thing. There's the difference. And when they look at me, they go, you mean you go into the prisons? I say, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the big, you know, and
Right.
and I tell where I go into maximum security. Well, you're not scared? No. I love going there. I love talking to my clients. Right. And sitting there with them for hours, and we talk about their case and what, you know, I get a good feel for them. And that's the thing. People are scared. Yeah. They're scared.
And I think that's it.
The fear. They're scared of, oh my God, what's going to happen if you get rid of life sentences? Then all these people, these criminals are going to run rampant, and they're going to invade our home and kill our children and rape our women.
Do you on a serious question, and this has been asked in Black communities all over the country. It just has, because I know I talk about it. Are not all, and I don't want a blanket statement. I don't want all this inboxing me talking about you blanket the statement. Is there a stigma for white America to be afraid of Black America even today?
Yeah. I believe so. I believe so. And I think there's even, like, with what's happening today in the political arena,
right,
with these crazy radical groups. I mean, I think we're in the end of the world, if you ask me, but yeah, I don't understand it. I really don't. But how the neo-Nazi and the white supremacist, I thought, oh my God, this is insane. We're in 2022. There shouldn't be such division and such hatred for one another. I don't understand it. And we all need to come together to make our world better for everyone. Black, white, Oriental, Hispanic, it doesn't matter.
But I think so. The people that are in certain seats of, lack of a better term, power or control, has the hands on the cogs and the wheels and the gears. And is it the only way to reform this is to clean house and re-put people back in, so then we can see if this can work?
You know what, we talked about that, I think, in the last show. And I think the question that was posed was, are we talking about revamping the whole criminal justice system? Just knocking it all down and rebuilding it? And yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, there are good people in the criminal justice system. Absolutely. We keep those. But they also need to be further trained in new techniques. But we do need, because this system isn't working. And this is the whole purpose of my book. If you reform, let's say, just the police, but you don't reform those other four parts, well, then the reformation that was made on the police is not going to matter. It's not going to have any effect, because it'll just fall apart. You have to reform each 5 of those sections that I mentioned, so they all work together. So as the offender goes through the system, he'll come out a better person. But in one of my last chapters, that's entitled Corruption, Oversight, Racism, and Community Improvement, I want to just speak about oversight.
Yes.
There should be an oversight committee made up of, and it's not under the police, not under the public defender, not under the state's attorney's office, not under the courts. They're unbiased, unprejudicial. They're just a separate, another department within the criminal justice system. And they do oversight. The defendant is then assigned to an oversight agent or representative. And that person follows that defendant through the system as he works his way through to make sure things are done properly.
I like it.
You know, there is no oversight. I remember when I was pounding the pavement on the Hill, I'd say about 15 years ago, because I wanted a job on Capitol Hill working for a congressman. And I remember I knew one congressman, I think his daughter or his wife, Dingell, but John Dingell now has passed away. He was the representative for Michigan, I think. And I went into his office and they introduced me to the chief of the Commerce Committee.
Okay.
And they told me, you know, back when Bush was president, I think this was the father.
Okay.
I think.
Senior.
They had oversight committee and it was made up of attorneys. And they said, you would be perfect for that job, but they got rid of it. I said, why did they get rid of it? And I said, what did they do?
Right.
And they would look at the bills that became laws and look at the laws to see if they were working.
Well, now you can understand why they got rid of it.
Yeah, there's a lot to hide.
There's a lot to hide. Right.
There's a lot to hide. And that's the thing. You know, we need, you know, this corruption. There's so much corruption. And that's what the oversight from the beginning to the end. And so that whenever anything goes wrong, it gets addressed right away. It doesn't linger for years and years.
You know, Maria, and you just called the system corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
So by sheer numbers alone, you're literally calling white America that's in this system, the larger percentage is corrupted.
Yeah.
That's not hard for them to swallow.
You know what? For someone like me who's been working within the criminal justice system and see it, you know, it's easy to see. But for a lay person, let's say a woman who's a beautician.
Right, okay.
Know about the criminal justice system. But there's the racism. It's like, oh, well, they're Black. And you see a Black person, well, he's a criminal. You know, it's so sad when you see people make that distinction. Well, he's a Black person, he's a criminal. He's a white person, no, he's not. Well, how do you know the Black person ain't a millionaire and the white person's the criminal? You know, this is what's sad. Now, can we ever get rid of racism? Maybe I'm living in a utopian.
Well, let me ask you this. If you could get rid of one out of the two, corruption and racism, right? One out of the two. Well, yeah, which one would you pick?
Oh, screw. That's hard. You know,
and people are listening to this, and when you watch it and hear it and play it back, I'm curious which one you pick. I could pick one. Without a doubt, I can pick one right now. You guess, and I'm not gonna have you guess. It's corruption.
It's corruption?
Yep. Because I have no qualms. I have no qualms about how people and why they feel the way they feel about a person and their color, religion, all that stuff. But as long as you don't corrupt something because of it.
See, it's the corruption is underneath the rape.
Right. But
and I agree with you there. I agree. I mean, I would like to get rid of both.
Me too, but it would be corruption because and so many Black people will say this. I don't care if you're prejudiced. I don't care if you don't like me. Just don't treat me unfairly.
That's right. That's right. You know, that's the thing. And that's what's wrong with our system. You look at the Maryland prisons, I think it's 70, at least 70% of the prison population is
Yeah.
Black.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, really? I think it's more, but you know,
We're still the highest.
We're still the highest, but
Well,
I still think it's more.
Here's two numbers Maryland has to look at, and I'm curious how proud they are to look at it. We arrest more Black men than any state, and Maryland's the richest state in the United States.
Wow.
And you could almost look at that and say, does one contribute to the other?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Does one contribute to the other? You know, that would be something really good to research and dig into, you know. The money has power.
Yes.
Money has a lot of power. And that's sad. And what do they say about money? Money is the root of all evil. You know, and the more money you have, the more money you want.
You know, someone had asked me we were talking about education. And I believe that the governor is the parent, the father, the mother of the state. If we had that governor, could that governor reform Maryland's prison system with the whack of his gavel? Or do you think it goes through the federal and so much intertwining stuff?
Okay, what I'm thinking about your question is, should it be on the state level or the federal level?
Right.
You know, if you look at all the states, all our state laws are different.
Correct.
You know, when you look at, let's say, the crime of first degree murder, you know, in Maryland it says one thing, and let's say in California it says another.
Right.
Different, you know, and we're all different states, and I think each state should govern as they see as it's right for them, because each state has their own demographics.
Correct.
You know, and each state some states have more Blacks than whites, some states have more Hispanics, you know, that kind of thing. So I think you need to govern as to, you know, what your demographics are. But I think you need, more importantly, to have compassion for people. And
I don't know if people can have compassion if they're corrupted, though, Maria.
oh no, there's no more, you know, here I am living in a utopian society.
Yeah, because I agree with you. This can be fixed. It can be, right?
It can.
We know it needs to be fixed. But we're talking against the corrupted community.
That's right.
And this is working for them.
Of course it's working, because they're making money out of it.
So
you know, how do you, well, that's what I'm saying. It takes courage to reform the criminal justice system, and you got to think outside of the box, because by staying in the box, we're not going to do something new and different. But these corrupt people, I mean, they need to be prosecuted. They need to be taken out. But how can they be if they have the money and the power?
Out of all the friends and out of all the people you know, friends, close friends, relatives, all of them, how many people agree with you out of 10?
What do you mean out of 10?
So out of 10 people, think of 10 people that you know are close to you. How many out of 10, who agrees with you?
Small percentage.
Give me a number. 3, 2, 5, 4.
4.
So, and you've been doing this, and they love you. Their family, their friends, they're close. They love you dearly. And only 4 would ever really be on that side. That's how hard this is.
That's right. That's how, and that's probably why it's not getting done. But that's why I wanted to put it out there.
So will this book help the other 6?
It could. It could.
I hope so.
I just put my thoughts on paper.
Right.
Put my thoughts on paper, and whoever, now I don't have the power to reform the criminal justice system. The way it gets reformed is through the legislature.
Which is through people. Which is through people.
And, you advocate, you have people that lobby for certain bills and, and ask for certain things to be done. But the law is slow. The law is very slow.
But if
make these corrections.
But if we talk to people, if we teach people, if we able to teach the 4 that love you, they believe you, they'll do it. We're not worried about them. The 6 people, if we lecture to them and talk to them, we're not trying. Listen to me, people. I never try to convince anyone of anything, but I do want to give you the education. I do want to give you the information, and let that do its due diligence, right? If we teach those 6 people what's in your book, a good guess, how many people would change out of the 6?
I'd say maybe 4.
That's amazing, because that's 8 people that
4 more people.
That's 8-2. We win the votes.
That's right, because the people that don't believe what I believe in, and I believe in this because I've seen it, and I talk to the people in prison. I talk to my clients.
Right.
I had this. I'm in contact with one. I'm hoping that he's going to be getting out pretty soon. And he told me he was in a federal penitentiary. This was years ago. He's probably served so far, I'm thinking 27 years. I'm thinking give or take a year or 2. And he was in the federal penitentiary down in, I think it was Kentucky. I'm not sure. And when you're in the federal penitentiary, you have access to email. So we would email each other.
Okay.
And I would help him with various, I guess, personal things. I would help him get documents for his case, that kind of thing. Because his case was very complicated, and I wasn't at that time ready to take on a case as his. And he told me something. He said, Maria, there are guys in here that are just like me. We just got involved with the wrong people, that we got involved with the wrong activity.
Right.
And we didn't have the support that we had at home. And if we just had really good direction and help, we would be different. However, he said, there are some evil people in here. He said, I try to avoid them as best I can, but it's not so easy. And they are just pure evil. And they're the ones that you say, well, can they ever be reformed? I don't know. Maybe in 50 years when they're 60. I don't know. That's a matter of, I guess, mental health and psychology and everything that they are.
Right.
And what I see is that most of the guys that I've represented honestly want to live a good life. They don't want to sell drugs. They don't want to, do the bad things that they do.
I agree. I know.
But the people that don't believe as I believe, they feel that, oh, well, if they really wanted to better their lives, they can do it. How?
Right, how?
They don't, when their father's in prison, their mother's a prostitute, there's drugs being sold on their street.
Right.
And, if you look at how I was raised in the schools I went to, we all went to college.
Right.
I went to a girl Catholic prep school. We all went to college. There was no Okay, yeah, we drank. You do that, that happens. But we didn't commit crimes. We weren't in that environment.
Right, right.
But put in a different environment where it fosters growth and success,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be a success. And that's what has to be in the prisons. That kind of atmosphere that fosters success.
But then again, you're talking to the corrupt majority that does not want success for the minority that's the majority in prison.
And why don't they want it?
Going back to your answer, they're afraid. They're afraid of they're afraid of the Black community.
This is what I said. Does it matter?
It must.
Remember where I wrote it, but I wrote, does it matter who comes up with the cure for cancer?
It must.
Does it, I don't care if it's a Black doctor, an Oriental doctor, just come up with the damn cure.
But we know it must matter because there has been others who have cured certain things in certain diseases that were not white men, and it mattered to them. And they put on their peer review, they knock it out, they do a lot of things to discredit it, and so it uplifts them. Yeah. So it does matter.
It does matter, and it's sad. It's sad that our world works this way, but I think we have to keep fighting for what should right. We have to keep fighting, and I believe that it's not just the Black man's fight. It's also the white man's fight too.
But it has to be the white man who believes in the four.
That's right. Who believes in that. And we have to, the white has to come together with the Black to uplift the community and fight for what's right and get rid of the corruption, get rid of the racism. The race, I believe that this is why racism hasn't been
eradicated,
but because it's just the Black man that's fighting it.
Right.
And
it's correct.
The white man stands by, and then you have some white people, oh yeah, the Black are right, this is terrible, what's happened, slavery. But the voice of the white people have to join with the voice of the Black people, because this is against the human race.
But actually, I think we have to go back and say it's the voice of a white man, because the white man has been the only one in the United States that's never had to fight for anything. The white woman had to at least fight for the right to vote, right? Work equality. At least they've had to fight for something, to own land, right? To be a part of something. White men have never had to fight for anything.
No, we haven't. No, we really, maybe you can say the immigrant may have to fight, the Hispanic.
Yeah, but not. But even when the Irish came, once they at time denounced the Irish part and discounted it as the white man, they were great, and then they took back their Irish heritage.
That's right. And it's sad. To fight this racism has to be ongoing, and everyone has to be involved. Everyone.
Where can people get your book?
They can get it. It's print on demand, either on Amazon.com or Barnes and Noble.
Show the book again and read the thing clearly. Yeah.
The title is Interdependency: How to Reform the Criminal Justice System, a View from a Criminal Defense Attorney. And my name is at the bottom.
Beautiful, beautiful. And if they just want to contact you, I think I'm going to ask you this before someone else does. I think you belong on a lecture series. I think the only way we get the other 4 out of the 6 to come on board to work for justice and unity, you have to lecture. You have to come out and do more.
teach. You got to teach people what's going on. Because when I talk to my friends that look at me like, you believe in this? And they go, but you don't know.
Right,
You
right.
know what I know. You don't see what I see.
Right.
Let me introduce you to this guy that's been in prison. You'll love him. I love him to death. You know, there's several. I tell you the truth, I think most of my clients I love to death. There were a few that I dropped like a sack of potatoes because I don't even want to get into it. But very few. And all of them were just wonderful. Another one should be getting out probably in another 4 more years, I'm thinking. And his wife is waiting for him. I love both of them to death, him and his wife. And he calls me his angel. And I'm always, rooting for him, and I really fight for them.
Right.
And that's what a lot of attorneys, they just don't do that. They don't fight for their clients. And I did that. And I believe that's what we need to do. We need to fight for the downtrodden, whether they're Black, Hispanic.
Not everyone goes to law
whatever.
school. Not everyone goes to law school for that reason.
No, they go to law school to make money. And
people got to remember the law is a language. And it's a language. If you don't know, you're going to mispronounce words and you're not going to understand something, and that's going to get you jammed up. It's a language of understanding, and only lawyers understand the language because they're taught how to understand language. So yeah.
And I like to put it in simple terms because lawyers make things complicated so they can charge the money.
Right.
And I like to put things in simple terms. When I talk to my clients, I make it simple. I don't start talking all this legal jargon. I don't mess with that. I look at who I'm dealing with and I want to help them. Mm-hmm. And that's where, the assistance, to individual people that are having problems, the communities that are having problems. We need to uplift these people in these communities. And how do you do it? I guess through education, through knowledge, because the knowledge gets rid of the fear.
Right.
And that's how it needs to be done. And we need to let people know more about this. There's, I remember I went to a prison. It was so funny. It was up in Hagerstown, and I had to visit with a client, and I think they shut it down now. I'm not sure, but it looks like it's beautiful. It's like this stone castle, and it was during the Christmas holidays. So it had a big evergreen tree, huge evergreen tree in front of the building. It was all decorated. And I went in, and then there was a guard, and I said, yeah, I'm here to meet a client. Oh, well, he said, oh, well, you got to go through these doors and make a left down this hallway and make a right down here and then go up the stairs. Well, I kind of got lost, and I'm wandering around this prison,
right?
And there are all these guys, some with brooms, they're in their prison garb, and then there this one guard comes up and he said, "Ma'am, are you lost?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm meeting the client, and they told me what to do. And so, okay, I got lost. But I wasn't scared. The guys are just looking at me like, who is this woman?
Yeah, and why didn't someone take you to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess because they had a post that they had to keep. But, when you tell me, make a right, make a left, go up these stairs, you got to press the button over here. I should have written it down, It was too much for me to remember.
Well, Maria, you are an angel, and I'm glad you're here on this earth with us. I'm glad you're here to do the things you are doing, because we do need to educate the people. I believe education and then information and understanding. I always believe that brings people to an action. You can still choose for or against, as long as you have the information and you understand the information. Right? And then you have a choice. But if you just go by my personal feelings, my personal emotions, more often it's going to be on the negative, and
That's right.
and the positive for yourself living, right? You're trying to make sure that you prosper other than someone else. But that's emotional. But when you do it for service of humanity, that's because you understand, you have information, and you're taking action. And that is exactly what you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dyer, for having me on your show, your podcast. I really enjoyed it. I hope people buy my book. I hope the right influential people buy it
Right.
and read it and maybe start tweaking it, because I know it's not perfect. And some of it may not be right or may not be doable, but it may start them thinking,
Yeah.
well, maybe we got to start thinking outside of the box.
So we just do this more often and then break it down where we talk about reform. That's exactly, and that's how we keep teaching people. That's the only way we can do it, because people who are prejudiced, they got their own thoughts. But if we can just teach people, and then
That's
they
right.
can do, then we can make this right. Thank you so much, my dear. You have
Well,
a beautiful evening, and I will be in contact with you sooner than later. And I'm so proud of you and your book.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate you letting me be on your podcast, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank
and
you.
Stay safe, okay?
I will. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.